Okay, so you want to own a hair salon. You picture a bright, calm space, soft music, the smell of shampoo and coffee, a chair full of regulars who've been coming to you for a decade, and a business built on something deeply personal, the fact that hair never stops growing. It feels like one of the safest small businesses left. People need haircuts in a recession the same way they need them in a boom. Here's the catch. The average hair salon in America operates on a profit margin of somewhere between 2 and 8%, and the majority of stylists working inside that salon aren't actually its employees at all. They're something closer to tenants, paying rent for a chair, keeping every dollar they earn, while the owner collects the same fee whether that stylist is booked solid or sitting empty. That one fact, more than rent, more than product cost, more than anything else, quietly decides whether a salon owner ever makes real money or just owns a very expensive building where other people happen to get paid. Picture Sarah. She's been cutting hair for 12 years, she's good at it, and she's just signed a lease on a 6-chair space in a solid suburban strip mall. She's picturing the version of this business everyone pictures. The calm room, the loyal regulars, the chair that's always full. What she's about to find out is that none of that determines whether she makes money. What determines it is a handful of numbers she hasn't thought about yet. Start with what it actually costs to open the doors. A small salon, 4 to 6 chairs, typically runs $60,000 to $150,000 to open. A larger space with a color bar and a full retail wall can run $200,000 to $400,000. The build-out eats the budget fastest. Plumbing to every shampoo bowl, electrical that can handle 6 blow dryers running at once without tripping a breaker, ventilation strong enough to actually pull chemical fumes out of the room instead of just moving them around. A single styling station, chair, mirror, outlet setup runs $1,500 to $4,000. A backwash station with a reclining bowl adds another one to $3,000. Multiply that across 6 chairs and 2 wash stations, and Sarah is at $20,000 to $30,000 before a single client walks in. Then licensing. Every person touching a client's hair needs an individual cosmetology license, 1,000 to 2,000 hours of training depending on the state. The salon itself needs a separate establishment license, and inspectors will check everything down to how chemical runoff from hair color gets disposed of, because in a lot of states, it can't legally go straight down a drain. Add liability insurance, $500 to $1,500 a year, plus malpractice coverage, because a bad chemical burn can end up in court. Factor in 3 to 6 months of reserves to survive the slow ramp-up, and Sarah's total realistic cost to open lands somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000 before her first real month of steady income. Now here's the part that actually shapes her business more than any of that startup math. Walk into most independent salons in America and ask who works there, and you'll find that close to half of licensed stylists in the country aren't on anyone's payroll. They're renting a chair. The stylist pays Sarah a flat weekly fee, usually $150 to $400 depending on the market, and in exchange gets the space, the shampoo bowl, the foot traffic. Every dollar that stylist earns after that is hers. Sarah doesn't take a cut. She's also not paying that stylist's payroll taxes, workers' comp, or health insurance. Legally, in most states, Sarah is a landlord. That sounds appealing. Guaranteed income, regardless of how busy the stylist is, no payroll exposure, no scheduling headaches. But it comes with a ceiling built right into the model. Sarah's revenue from that chair is capped at the rental rate, period. If her best stylist builds a client list so loyal she's booked 8 weeks out charging $250 a service, Sarah still collects the same $300 a week she was collecting when that same stylist was a struggling apprentice charging $60 a cut. Sarah owns the building. The stylist owns the upside. The alternative is commission, where the salon takes a cut of every service, typically 40 to 60% depending on experience. Now Sarah's revenue scales directly with how good and how busy her stylists are. But she also now owns the payroll tax, the health insurance conversation, the workers' comp, and the legal risk, because misclassifying a commission stylist as an independent contractor is one of the most common and expensive violations labor regulators go after in this industry, and several major salon chains have paid multi-million-dollar settlements over exactly that mistake. Neither model is free money. One trades scale for simplicity, the other trades simplicity for scale. Sarah ends up running 3 chairs on commission and 3 on rental, hedging both bets at once. Now the part that actually keeps her lights on, because it isn't the haircuts. A basic cut runs $45 to $85 for women, $25 to $45 for men, and on paper that looks like solid revenue for 15 minutes of work. It isn't. A quick haircut barely covers labor, product, and the overhead sitting behind that chair for the time it occupied. The real money lives in color. A single process color service runs $70 to $150. A full balayage, the kind that occupies a chair for 2 to 4 hours, runs $150 to $400 or more in a competitive market, with gross margins north of 60% once product cost is factored in. This is why salons quietly restructure their pricing over the years to move clients from a basic cut into a color package. That client isn't just spending more per visit, she's coming back every 6 to 8 weeks instead of every 4 to 6 months. Retail is the other engine, and it works like the shelf at a pharmacy checkout. A bottle of shampoo that costs Sarah $6 to $9 wholesale sells for $28 to $40 at the register, a margin that dwarfs anything happening in the actual chair. Retail should make up around 10% of a healthy salon's total revenue, and salons that hit that number consistently outperform ones that treat it as an afterthought, because that revenue carries almost none of the labor cost eating into every service dollar. A stylist recommending a product at the end of an appointment isn't just being helpful, it's one of the highest margin moments in the entire business. Now hold 3 numbers in your head, because everything after this comes back to them. 2 to 8%, that's the average margin. 50%, that's the stylist turnover rate at the entry level in a given year. 20%, that's how many booked appointments simply don't show up without a deposit policy in place. Those 3 numbers are the entire hidden engine of whether Sarah's salon survives. Start with the no-shows. Every empty chair hour isn't a delayed sale, it's a permanently lost one, because that time can't be resold once it's passed. A 4-chair salon losing even 1 appointment per chair per day to no-shows is losing roughly an entire extra working day of revenue every single week. This is why most salons now require a card on file and charge a cancellation fee inside a narrowing window, usually 24 to 48 hours, and salons that implement that policy report cutting no-shows by more than half. It sounds like a small operational detail. Across a year, it's often the line between comfortably profitable and quietly bleeding out. Then there's turnover, the cost nobody budgets for correctly. Stylist turnover runs above 50% at the entry level in this industry, and when a stylist leaves, the salon doesn't just lose an employee, it loses every relationship that stylist built, because clients follow their stylist to wherever she lands next, not the building she left. Replacing her to full productivity takes 3 to 6 months, during which that chair earns a fraction of its normal revenue, and rebuilding her client list through promotions and referral incentives can cost thousands of dollars per chair. This is why owners who've been doing this for years obsess over culture and retention far more than marketing. Keeping a good stylist for 5 years is dramatically cheaper than replacing a mediocre one every 18 months. And Sarah isn't just competing with the salon down the street anymore. Membership-based blowout bars have borrowed the same subscription logic that makes gyms profitable, a predictable recurring payment that doesn't require every slot to be filled to stay cash flow positive. And independent stylists building a following on Instagram and TikTok are taking clients directly through an app with no storefront at all, no rent, no booth fee, no overhead, keeping the entire service price for themselves. That's a real structural threat to everything Sarah built. So let's run her actual numbers. In the good year, Sarah's 6 chairs, 3 commission, 3 rental, bring in around $650,000 total between service commissions, booth income, and retail. Cost of goods runs about 12%. Payroll and taxes for her commission staff and front desk take close to 45%. Rent, utilities, and insurance take another 15%. What's left, somewhere around $110,000 to $130,000, is her net profit for the year, before she's even paid herself for running the place. Now the realistic year. 2 of her commission stylists leave within 8 months of each other. 1 to open her own studio, 1 for a better split across town, and both take a meaningful piece of their client books with them. It takes 4 months to rebuild those chairs to even half productivity, and she's paying full rent against 2 nearly empty stations that whole time. No-shows creep back up because her new front desk hire isn't enforcing the deposit policy as tightly as she did herself. A slow winter lands on top of a rent increase at renewal. That $120,000 baseline doesn't just shrink, it can collapse to $20,000 or turn into a loss, even though from the sidewalk, the salon looks exactly as busy as it did the year before. The difference between those 2 years was never about how many haircuts got performed. It was about whether the chairs stayed filled with people who wanted to stay. So if you're picturing what Sarah pictured, the calm room, the loyal regulars, the smell of shampoo and coffee, remember what you're actually building. It was never really a haircutting business. It's a retention business wearing a smock. And the owners who make real money long-term are rarely the ones with the fanciest build-out. They're the ones who figured out early that the product on the shelf, the deposit policy at booking, and the stylist who stays 5 years instead of 18 months matter more than anything happening in the mirror.